The afternoon sun rested softly over the city when the plane touched down. For a moment, Clara sat still, her heart beating fast. She had waited 12 long years for this day. 12 years of cold mornings in a foreign land. 12 years of wiping the tears that came after every lonely shift. 12 years of sending almost everything she earned to one woman, her mother. As she stepped out of the airport, the warm Nigerian air hit her face, carrying dust, noise, and the scent of roasted corn from a distance. It felt strange, yet familiar. The driver she had hired helped her load her boxes into the taxi. She sat quietly by the window as the city flashed by. The yellow buses, the hawkers shouting, the mothers balancing trays of oranges on their heads. Her lips trembled with a soft smile. "Mama will be so happy," she whispered. "I told her I was coming, but I didn't tell her when. I wanted to be a surprise." For years, Clara had dreamed of this homecoming. She imagined her mother running out to hug her. She imagined herself walking through the big house her money had built, the house she designed through phone calls and countless voice notes. She imagined sleeping in a room of her own, finally under a roof that carried her name. She could still hear her mother's voice from those years. "My daughter," her mother would say, "God will bless you. The house is coming up beautifully. I'm making sure it will be the best in the village. You will be proud when you come home." And Clara had believed every word. She had sent money for the land, the foundation, the roofing, the tiles, even for the furniture. Sometimes, when her rent abroad was due, she borrowed money from friends just to make sure the construction didn't stop. Her only wish was to see her mother live well. The car finally turned into her old street. Her heart pounded faster. The dusty road, the children playing with worn-out tires, the small shops lined with biscuits and sachet water, everything looked the same. But at the far end stood a large mansion she had never seen before. The compound had tall walls, a bright blue gate, and flowers planted along the fence. Her eyes widened. "That must be it," she whispered. Her voice shook with joy. "Mama really built it." The taxi stopped in front of the gate. Clara stepped out slowly, her heart too full for words. She held her small handbag tight and said to the driver, "Thank you. You can go. I'm home now." As the taxi drove away, she stood for a long time, staring at the gate. Her hands trembled as she knocked. After a moment, the gate opened slightly, and a young man she didn't recognize peeked through. "Who are you looking for?" he asked in a rude tone. Clara smiled politely. "Please, tell Madame Grace that her daughter is here." "Her daughter Clara." The boy frowned. "Which Clara? There is no Clara here." Before Clara could answer, she heard a familiar voice, the one she had longed for all these years. "Who is that?" Clara's breath caught in her throat. She turned, and there, standing at the veranda, was her mother, the same woman she had dreamed of hugging. But something was different. Her mother looked richer, dressed in a shiny gown and gold earrings, her face painted, her expression cold. "Mama," Clara cried, running toward her. "It's me, your daughter." Her mother stood still, her hands crossed over her chest. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "Clara," she said slowly, "what are you doing here?" Clara laughed softly, confused. "Mama, what kind of question is that? I told you I was coming home. Don't tell me you forgot." But her mother did not smile. She only looked at Clara from head to toe, her travel-worn dress, her dusty shoes, her tired eyes. "You should have called," her mother said coldly. "You can't just appear like this." "Mama, I wanted to surprise you," Clara said, forcing a laugh. "I missed you too much. Please open the door for me. I want to see the house." Her mother hesitated, then said quietly, "Wait here." She turned back into the house. Clara stood there for minutes, her heart heavy with unease. She couldn't understand her mother's coldness. Maybe it was shock, she told herself. Maybe Mama was too surprised to react. Then, suddenly, the gate opened wider, but not by her mother. Two men stepped out. They were her younger brothers, Daniel and Felix, dressed in fine clothes, holding car keys. Clara's smile widened. "Daniel." "Felix," she called. "You've grown so much. I can't believe this. Where's Mama? I've missed all of you so much." But the two men didn't smile back. They exchanged a strange look, then Daniel spoke first. "So, The London sister has finally remembered we exist. Clara's heart skipped. What do you mean? Felix folded his arms. What are you doing here, Clara? You should have called. Mama didn't say you were coming. I came to see you all, she said softly. And to see the house Mama built. The one I've been sending money for all these years. Daniel gave a short laugh. House you sent money for? This house. Yes, Clara said, smiling faintly, still not understanding the tone in his voice. He stepped closer, eyes cold. You mean our house? Clara froze. Your house. Before anyone could speak again, her mother returned. Her expression was even colder now. Clara, she said, let's talk inside. But what awaited her inside that house was not the welcome she had dreamed of. It was the beginning of the greatest shock of her life. Clara followed her mother slowly through the wide compound. The air felt too heavy to breathe. The mansion was grand, just like she had imagined, but something about it didn't feel right. Every step she took echoed in her chest like a warning. She looked around in wonder and pain. The walls were freshly painted, the flowers blooming, and the veranda tiles shone under the sun. Her heart swelled with pride and gratitude. All those years of hard work weren't wasted, she thought. Mama truly built it. But her mother didn't look at her. She walked ahead silently, her gown swaying. When they entered the living room, Clara stopped again. It was beautiful. Leather sofas, chandelier lights, a giant television on the wall, even framed pictures of her brothers wearing suits. But she searched the walls carefully, her eyes scanning from corner to corner. Her picture was nowhere. Mama, she whispered softly, you didn't hang any of my photos? Her mother turned, her face blank. Why should I? Clara blinked. Because I'm your daughter. Her mother sighed impatiently. Clara, don't start. Sit down. There's something I need to tell you. Clara sat slowly on the edge of a chair. Her palms were damp. Her brothers came in and stood by the door, whispering to each other. They didn't greet her. They didn't even pretend to be happy. Clara, her mother began, you've been gone for a long time. Things have changed. Life doesn't stand still because you are abroad. Clara nodded gently. I know, Mama. That's why I sent money, to make things better for you, for us. I wanted to come home and rest. Maybe start a clinic here. Her mother gave a small, sharp laugh. Clinic? Rest? My dear, you talk as if you still have a place here. Clara's heart stilled. Mama, what do you mean? Her mother's eyes met hers, cold and hard. I mean, this house is not yours. The room fell silent. The only sound was the slow ticking of the wall clock. Clara leaned forward, confused. Mama, I don't understand. Every money I sent, every single one, was for this house. You told me the papers were in my name. I changed my mind, her mother said simply. Your brothers needed somewhere to stay. They are men. They will carry the family name. You, on the other hand, will get married and leave. Why should I give everything to you? The words struck Clara like thunder. She felt her heart crack inside her chest. Mama, how could you, she whispered. You told me I was building my future. You swore. Her mother cut her off sharply. Don't raise your voice at me. Do you think because you live abroad, you can talk to me any way you like? Let me remind you, I carried you for 9 months. I raised you. Whatever you have is because of me. Daniel stepped closer, sneering. Yes, because of her. You always behaved like you were better than us just because you send money from abroad. Now you can see you are nothing here. Felix added, laughing. Do you know how people in the village talk? They say you are our servant, sending money to feed us. And truly, that's what you are, our servant abroad. Clara's lips trembled. That's not true. I sent money because I love you. I wanted all of you to live well. Mama, please tell me this is a joke. Her mother's eyes stayed cold. The papers are already signed. The house, the land, everything you think is yours. They all belong to your brothers now. And I don't want any argument. You should be grateful I even let you step in here. Clara's voice cracked. Mama, where will I go? I have no husband, no house, no family abroad anymore. Everything I worked for is here. Her mother turned her face away. That's not my problem. You should have thought of that before staying away for so long. What kind of daughter leaves her mother to struggle alone? Tears rolled down Clara's face. Mama, I sent money every month. You never lacked. You told me you were proud of me. Her mother's expression softened for a second, then hardened again. Maybe I was, but things changed. You're not part of this family's plans anymore. Felix crossed his arms. You've heard her. We don't want drama. Pick your bag and go. You can sleep in one of those cheap lodges near the junction. Clara stood slowly. Her legs shook. You were sending me away? From my own house. Daniel smirked. Your own house? You mean our house? She turned to her mother one last time, eyes full of tears. Mama, please. Tell them to stop. Tell them I'm still your daughter. But her mother only sighed. You left as my daughter, Clara. You returned as a stranger. The words sliced through her like a knife. She stared at her mother's face, searching for any trace of the woman she once knew. The woman who prayed for her on video calls, who cried when she said goodbye at the airport 12 years ago. But that woman was gone. Only the stranger remained, cold, proud, and cruel. Clara picked up her small suitcase and walked slowly toward the door. The brothers stepped aside, grinning. Outside, the evening sun burned red across the sky. As she stepped out of the gate, she heard her mother's final words, spoken without emotion. Don't come back here again. The gate slammed behind her. And for the first time since her childhood, Clara realized what it truly meant to be alone. That night, Clara sat under a tree not far from the house she had built. Her small box lay beside her, her head resting on her knees. The street was quiet except for the sound of crickets and faraway voices of people closing their shops. She could see the blue gate from where she sat, shining faintly under the streetlight. Her gate, but not hers anymore. Tears had dried on her face, leaving faint white lines. The dust from passing cars settled on her hair, but she didn't care. Her mind was lost in memories, the phone calls, the long hours at the hospital abroad, the nights she went hungry just to send money home. She could still hear her mother's voice in her head. Don't worry, my daughter. I'm building your future. Now she was here, and her future had been taken away. She watched the house from a distance. Inside those walls were the people she loved most, her mother and brothers, yet she felt like a stranger in her own blood. The pain cut deep, and each thought felt heavier than the last. When dawn came, the world slowly woke up. Traders pushed their wheelbarrows, school children ran along the dusty road, and bus drivers honked impatiently. Clara stood up slowly. Her body ached, but her heart ached more. She wiped her face, picked up her small box, and whispered to herself, maybe Mama didn't mean it. Maybe she was angry. I'll go and beg her. I'll kneel if I have to. She walked back to the house she had once called home. The compound gate stood tall and proud, just as she left it. She knocked gently at first. No one answered. She knocked again, harder. Mama, please open. It's me. Please, I want to talk to you. Still no answer. She began to cry as she knocked again. Mama, please. I didn't come to fight. I just want to talk. I have nowhere else to go. Please open, I beg you. The gate creaked, and then it opened slightly. Her mother stood there, wrapped in a fancy wrapper, holding a plastic bucket. Her eyes were cold. Mama, Clara said softly, stepping forward. Please don't turn me away again. I'll do anything you want. I'll stay quietly. I won't cause trouble. Please let me in. Her mother's face twisted with anger. You again? Didn't I warn you yesterday? Clara knelt quickly. Mama, forgive me. I can't believe everything I worked for is gone. I can't believe you really hate me this much. I thought we were family. Her mother gave a short, bitter laugh. Family? You abandoned me for 12 years, and now you come back to claim what you didn't suffer for? You think I'm a fool? Clara's tears fell faster. Mama, I suffered for everything. You know it. You know I sent the money. Every month. Even when I didn't eat. Her mother's eyes darkened. Enough of this nonsense, she shouted. If you don't leave now, I'll teach you a lesson you won't forget. Mama, please, Clara whispered, crawling closer. Please don't do this. I'm your daughter. Without another word, her mother lifted the bucket and threw the dirty water on her. The filthy water splashed across Clara's face, soaking her hair, her clothes, her bag. Clara gasped, trembling. Mama, she cried. Why would you do that? Her mother sneered. Because you're a disgrace. Look at you. smelling like the street. You are no better than a beggar now. The gate opened wider and her brothers stepped out. Daniel looked at her with disgust. Still here? You think this drama will change anything? Felix grabbed her arm roughly. Get out of here before people start thinking you're mad. Clara struggled weakly. Please, let me just talk to Mama. Just one more word. But Daniel shoved her hard. She fell to the ground, her knees scraping against the concrete. Her small box fell open, scattering her few clothes on the dusty road. Pick your rags and leave. Daniel barked. You have no home here. Felix dragged her up and pushed her toward the gate. Don't ever come near this compound again. Clara screamed, clutching the gate with both hands. Mama, Mama, please open. Please, let me talk to you. Her mother turned her back. Close the gate, she said coldly. The gate slammed shut, and Clara fell to her knees outside, still banging on it. Her palms turned red from the force. Mama, it's me. Please, you're my mother. Don't do this to me. Her cries echoed through the street, but no one stopped. A few people looked as they passed. A woman carrying vegetables, a group of school children, a man pushing a wheelbarrow, but they all kept walking. Everyone was busy with their own lives. No one cared about the woman crying outside her own home. The morning sun grew hotter. Sweat mixed with her tears. Her voice cracked as she kept calling out. Mama, please, just open the gate. I'm your daughter, Mama. Please. But inside, there was only silence. After a long while, her hands slipped weakly from the gate. She sat on the ground, shaking. Her body was wet, her heart broken, her spirit crushed. She looked up at the bright sky and whispered through tears, God, what did I do wrong? I only wanted to make them proud. The street swallowed her cries. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. After that morning outside the blue gate, Clara never went back there again. The memory alone was too painful. Every time she passed through that street, her chest grew tight and her eyes filled with tears. So she moved to another part of the city, a quieter area near the bus park, where no one knew her name or story. The first nights were the hardest. She stayed in a small, unfinished building with cracked walls and no door. The wind blew in freely and rats scurried at night. She slept on a thin mat, using her old clothes as a pillow. Sometimes she woke up shivering from cold, sometimes from dreams where she heard her mother's voice again, soft and kind, calling her name like before. But when she opened her eyes, only silence answered. Her savings had finished. The little she came home with was gone within days. She ate once a day, sometimes only bread and water. She washed people's clothes in the nearby compound to earn small money, enough to buy soap and food. Nobody knew she was a nurse. Nobody knew she had once lived abroad. Every day, she thought of giving up. The betrayal had broken something deep inside her, something she didn't know how to fix. Her own mother's face haunted her. The image of that dirty water running down her body wouldn't leave her mind. One evening, as she sat by the roadside watching buses rush by, she whispered, "Maybe this is how my story ends." Her voice shook. Maybe God has forgotten me. But even in her silence, life was listening. It happened one morning. Clara had gone to a nearby pharmacy to buy pain relief for her headache. Inside, she overheard two women talking. St. Joseph's Hospital is looking for nurses again, one said. They need people for the night shift. Clara froze. For a moment, she wasn't sure if she had heard right. Hospital. The word lit a small fire inside her chest. She turned to the woman politely. Please, Ma, which hospital did you say? St. Joseph's, the woman repeated. Down the main road, just after the Catholic church. They're interviewing tomorrow. Clara thanked her, her heart beating fast. That night, she didn't sleep. She washed her only clean dress and ironed it with a warm pot cover. She brushed her hair neatly and polished her shoes with cooking oil. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. The next morning, she woke up before sunrise. The air was cold and still. As she walked down the long road to the hospital, she whispered quietly to herself, Lord, please don't let them reject me. When she arrived, she was the first person there. The hospital compound smelled of disinfectant and morning dew. She waited quietly on the bench, holding her small brown envelope with her documents, the same one she brought from abroad, still neatly folded. Hours passed before the matron came out. A tall woman in her 50s, with glasses and a white uniform. She looked tired but kind. "Good morning," she said. "You're here for the interview?" "Yes, Ma," Clara said softly. Her voice trembled. The matron scanned her papers. You trained in the UK?" "Yes, Ma," Clara replied. The woman looked at her clothes. Old, faded, but clean. "Why are you looking for work here? With your experience, you should be in one of those big hospitals in the city." Clara swallowed. "Life happened, Ma. I just need a chance." There was something in her tone, something honest and broken. The matron looked at her again and said quietly, "Come tomorrow morning. You can start your night shifts." For a second, Clara didn't breathe. "Ma, are you serious?" The woman smiled faintly. "Yes, but be early. We don't tolerate lateness." Clara's eyes filled instantly. "Thank you, Ma. God bless you. You won't regret it." When she stepped outside, the sun was rising gently over the roofs. For the first time in months, she smiled, not because life was perfect, but because life had given her a little space to stand again. That night, she sat on her mat in the small room and whispered, "Maybe God didn't forget me after all." She still carried her pain like a scar inside her heart. She still thought of her mother and brothers every day. But now, for the first time since everything fell apart, she had something to wake up for. Her new beginning had come quietly, not with applause or comfort, but with work, peace, and a second chance. The first few weeks at St. Joseph's Hospital were not easy for Clara. Every sound in the ward, every cry from a patient, every sharp smell of antiseptic seemed to remind her of the life she once had, a life she lost without warning. She did her work quietly, always the first to arrive and the last to leave. The other nurses noticed her silence. They often chatted and laughed during their breaks, but Clara mostly sat alone in a corner, eating her food in silence and staring into space. Sometimes, when she was dressing a wound or checking a patient's pulse, her mind drifted back to that day. The blue gate, her mother's cold eyes, the dirty water, the laughter of her brothers. The memories came like a storm, and she had to blink fast to stop her tears from falling. "Clara," the head nurse once said kindly, "you're hardworking, but you don't talk much. Try to make friends. Life is not only about work." Clara smiled faintly and nodded, but inside she thought, "How can I talk when my heart is still bleeding?" Every evening, when her shift ended, she walked home quietly through the narrow streets. She still lived in that small unfinished room. She cooked her food on a small stove and washed her uniforms by hand. On her table sat a small photograph of herself from years ago, taken before she left for abroad, a reminder of who she used to be. One rainy night, everything changed. It was close to midnight when a young man was rushed into the hospital after a motorcycle accident. Blood covered his leg, and his clothes were soaked. Clara and another nurse helped the doctors to clean and stitch the wound. Throughout the night, she stayed by his bed, monitoring his pulse and giving him medicine. By morning, when the rain had stopped and the sun was gently breaking through the window, the man opened his eyes slowly. His voice was weak. "Are you the nurse who stayed with me all night?" Clara nodded. "Yes. You lost a lot of blood. How do you feel?" He managed a small smile. "Alive, thanks to you." His name was David. He was a quiet man in his early 30s, kind-eyed and gentle in speech. He worked as a medical consultant for a big hospital in the city, but had come to the village to visit his uncle when the accident happened. During the following days, as he recovered, David often talked to Clara. At first, she answered him briefly. But something about him, his calm voice, his respectful tone, made it easy for her to open up little by little. That he noticed her sadness one evening and said softly, "You have a heavy heart, Clara. You hide it. Well, but I can see it in your eyes." She smiled weakly. "It's just life, sir. It hasn't been kind." He didn't push her to explain. Instead, he simply said, "Sometimes life breaks us to rebuild us stronger. Don't give up yet." For the first time in a long while, someone had spoken to her with kindness. Not pity, not judgment, just quiet understanding. Weeks passed, and David became her friend. He sometimes brought her lunch to the hospital or waited after his checkups to walk her partway home. They laughed easily together, though Clara's laughter was still soft and careful, as if she was afraid it might offend the ghosts of her past. 5 months later, David's leg was fully healed, and it was time for him to return to the city. On his last day at the hospital, he found Clara during her break. "Clara," he said, handing her a small brown envelope, "I don't want to make decisions for you, but there's something I think you deserve." She opened the envelope and froze. Inside was a letter, a recommendation addressed to the chief medical director of City Care General Hospital, one of the biggest hospitals in the capital. Her eyes widened. "David, what is this?" He smiled gently. "It's your new beginning. I spoke to the director about you. They need nurses like you, disciplined, hardworking, compassionate. Go there. Don't stay here hiding your light." Tears filled Clara's eyes instantly. "Why are you doing this for me?" "Because someone once helped me when I thought my life was over," he said quietly. "Now it's my turn to pass it on." Clara looked at the letter again, her hands shaking. "I don't even have money to travel." "I've already paid your fare," he said softly. "You'll leave tomorrow morning. Promise me you'll go." For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her lips trembled as tears rolled down her cheeks. She covered her face with both hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't have to," David replied. "Just live again." The next morning, as the village slowly woke up, Clara stood by the roadside with her small box beside her. The same box she had brought from abroad, worn, old, but still strong. The bus engine started, and as it moved, she looked out the window one last time. The dusty roads, the small stalls, the tiny hospital, they all faded behind her. Her heart was heavy but hopeful. She didn't know what awaited her in the city, but for the first time in many months, she felt alive again. As the bus rolled into the long highway, Clara whispered a quiet prayer. "Lord, if this is my new chapter, please help me not to look back." The city greeted Clara with a different kind of air, busy, loud, and full of motion. Everywhere she looked, life was moving fast. Buses honking, people rushing to work, traders shouting, and buildings stretching high into the morning sky. It was far from the quiet, dusty village she had left behind. With her small box in one hand and David's letter in the other, she stood before the tall glass building of City Care General Hospital. The signboard gleamed under the sun. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. It felt like a dream too heavy for her heart to carry. Inside, the corridors smelled of polished floors and expensive perfume. Nurses in neat uniforms walked briskly. Doctors discussed in low voices, and patients moved quietly under soft lights. Clara's shoes clicked softly as she walked up to the reception desk. "Good morning," she said shyly. "My name is Clara. I was sent here for an interview." The receptionist looked at the letter, her eyes widening slightly. "You're recommended by Mr. David Williams?" "Yes," Clara nodded. The woman smiled warmly. "Please wait here. The director has been expecting you." When Clara was led into the office, the man behind the desk, the chief medical director, stood and shook her hand. "So you're Clara. David spoke highly of you. Welcome to City Care." And just like that, her new life began. Her first few days were filled with quiet amazement. Everything was new, the advanced machines, the clean wards, the organized system. She worked with discipline as she always had, but this time there was peace in her heart. Her salary was more than she had ever earned, and she rented a small but comfortable room close to the hospital. Every morning, she woke early, dressed neatly, and whispered a short prayer of gratitude before stepping out. Still, at night, when the city lights blinked outside her window, memories of her mother and brothers came back. She wondered if they thought about her at all. She wondered if her mother ever felt regret. The pain was still there, like a quiet scar that refused to fade. One afternoon, while she was checking a patient's chart, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "So, you didn't forget how to work hard." She turned quickly, and there was David, smiling gently, standing by the doorway. Clara's face lit up, her heart skipping. "David, I didn't know you were back." He laughed softly. "I never left, not really. I've been watching from a distance, waiting for you to settle in." She smiled shyly. You didn't tell me you worked here. He raised an eyebrow. Did I forget to mention that my father owns this hospital? Clara froze. Your father? David nodded. Dr. Williams. He built this hospital years ago. I grew up running through these corridors. For a moment, Clara didn't know what to say. She looked around, the expensive equipment, the marble floors, the nurses moving respectfully. You mean you're the owner's son? He smiled faintly. Yes, but that's not why I helped you. I didn't want you to see me that way. I wanted you to see a friend, someone who believed in your goodness. Clara's eyes softened. You gave me back my life, David. I don't even know how to thank you. Don't, he said gently. You did that yourself. You just needed a small push to remember who you were. Days turned into weeks. Clara worked with more confidence, her laughter returning little by little. She and David often had lunch together in the hospital garden, a quiet place filled with flowers and birds. They talked about work, about faith, and sometimes about pain. Clara found herself telling him everything she had gone through, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the loneliness. David listened without interrupting, his eyes full of empathy. When she finished, he said quietly, You've walked through fire, Clara. But look at you now, still standing, still kind. That's strength. For the first time in years, she didn't cry when she talked about her past. She smiled. A real smile, soft and honest. David became the calm she never knew she needed. He never tried to fix her pain. He just stayed close, patient and steady. Some evenings, when her shift ended late, he would wait at the hospital gate to walk her home. They talked, sometimes laughed, sometimes stayed quiet, but even the silence between them felt peaceful. One evening, as they stood by the hospital parking lot watching the sunset paint the sky orange, David said softly, You know, Clara, when I first saw you that night in the village hospital, you looked like someone whose light had gone out. But now, I can see it shining again. Clara looked at him, her eyes moist but full of warmth. You helped me find it. He smiled. Then maybe it's time you stop surviving and start living. Something in her heart melted. The walls she had built for years began to crumble slowly. She didn't say anything. She just looked at him and smiled, the kind of smile that comes when pain finally begins to loosen its grip. And so, life began to change for Clara. She rose early with peace in her heart. She worked with passion. The hospital staff admired her humility, her dedication, and her gentle spirit. Patients trusted her. Even the chief director once said, Clara, people like you remind us why this hospital was built. At night, she no longer cried herself to sleep. She talked to David often, sometimes in person, sometimes over the phone. Their friendship grew quietly into something deeper, something neither of them rushed nor named. For the first time in a long time, Clara felt alive. Not because everything was perfect, but because her heart had begun to heal. And with every sunrise over the city skyline, she knew. The girl who once stood crying outside a gate had finally found a door that opened. 2 years passed quietly in the city. Clara's life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. Each morning, she walked through the tall glass doors of City Care General Hospital, wearing her crisp white uniform and a gentle smile. The same woman who once slept under an unfinished building now had her own apartment, a small car, and peace in her heart. But what she valued most wasn't the comfort. It was her new sense of worth. She no longer carried shame when she looked in the mirror. She had learned to forgive herself for trusting the wrong people. She had learned to pray again, not in tears but in gratitude. And beside her through every step was David. Their friendship had deepened into something steady and warm. David's kindness had no pride in it, though his family was wealthy and respected. He never treated her as less. They spent evenings walking through the city park, sharing roasted corn, or simply sitting quietly, watching the city lights. Sometimes he told her stories about his childhood, how his father built the hospital from nothing, how his mother taught him never to look down on anyone. And sometimes Clara shared memories from her village, the laughter she once had, the little market by the stream, the mango tree where she used to sit as a child. Their laughter came easily now. Her heart, once bruised, began to feel alive again. One evening, as they walked through the hospital garden, David turned to her with a calm smile. Clara, he said softly, you've healed so many people here, but you don't even realize how much you've healed me too. She smiled shyly. How could I heal you? You've had everything. He shook his head. Not everything. Money doesn't fill an empty soul. You reminded me what true strength looks like, standing up again after life breaks you. Clara didn't reply. She only looked at him, her eyes warm, her heart full. A few months later, something unexpected happened. It was a bright Saturday morning. The hospital compound was quiet except for the rustle of trees and the soft sound of cars in the distance. Clara was on her way out when she saw two familiar figures walking uncertainly through the gate. Her heart stopped. It was her mother, looking thinner, older, her clothes worn and her face pale, and beside her were Daniel and Felix. They looked different too. Their once proud shoulders now bent with worry. For a moment, Clara froze. Her legs felt weak. Memories rushed back like a flood. The shouting, the pushing, the dirty water, the cold gate. Her chest tightened. She turned quickly to leave, but her mother's voice stopped her. Clara, Clara, my daughter. Clara stood still, her hands trembling. Slowly, she turned around. Her mother's eyes met hers, full of something she hadn't seen in years, regret. Is it really you? Her mother whispered, stepping closer. You look so different, so beautiful. Clara said nothing. Her heart was racing, torn between pain and pity. Felix spoke first, his voice low. Clara, please don't turn away. We've been looking for you. We heard you work here. Mama has been sick. We lost everything. The house, it's gone. Daniel added quickly, we made mistakes, Clara. We were proud. We thought we were wise. Now we know we were wrong. Clara stared at them quietly. It was strange, standing there in her white uniform, neat and composed, while the people who once threw her out stood before her, dusty and trembling. Her mother's voice broke through the silence. My daughter, I'm sorry. Her lips trembled as she spoke. That day, I let my anger speak louder than love. I don't sleep at night because of what I did to you. Tears filled her eyes. Can you ever forgive me? For a long time, Clara didn't move. Inside her chest, her heart was at war. The hurt still burned, but pity had found its way in too. Mama, she said finally, her voice soft and steady. You poured dirty water on me. You called me a stranger. You told me to never come back. I begged you, but you turned your face away. Do you know how that felt? Her mother's tears fell harder. I know, my daughter. I was foolish. I've lived every day regretting it. Please forgive me before I die. Clara took a slow breath. The air around them felt heavy, yet freeing. I forgave you long ago, she said quietly, but I had to walk through pain to learn my worth. You taught me what it means to lose everything and still find myself again. Her brothers dropped to their knees. Clara, please help us, Felix said. We've lost everything. We need work. We need food. David, who had been watching from a distance, walked toward them. His tall figure carried quiet authority. He stopped beside Clara and placed a hand on her shoulder. Is everything all right? He asked gently. Clara looked at him and nodded faintly. This is my family. Her mother wiped her tears, looking at David with curiosity. You're your husband? David smiled softly. Not yet, he said calmly. But soon, if she'll have me. Her mother's eyes widened, and Daniel and Felix stared in disbelief. Clara blushed, but David's voice continued with quiet pride. This woman you rejected. She's the best nurse in this hospital. Everyone here respects her. You threw away gold thinking it was dirt. Her mother covered her face and began to weep. God, forgive me. Clara knelt beside her and took her trembling hands. Mama, stop crying. What's done is done. I'll help you. Not because you deserve it, but because I've learned that love is stronger than hate. Her mother wept harder, her tears soaking Clara's uniform. Around them, nurses and patients who had gathered to watch stood quietly, moved by the scene. Some wiped their eyes. When Clara finally stood, her voice was calm and steady. I'll speak to the director. You'll get food and somewhere to stay. But please, Mama, never treat love like weakness again. Her mother nodded, still crying. David watched her with admiration, the same woman who was once broken now standing like light itself. He whispered softly, "You're stronger than anyone I've ever known." Clara smiled faintly, looking up at the sky. "No, David. I just learned that pain can't kill you when you choose peace." That evening, when the hospital was quiet again, Clara stood by the window of her office, watching the sunset bathe the city in gold. The past had finally come back, not to destroy her, but to bow before her strength. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and smiled. The girl who once begged outside a gate now stood behind doors that opened with her name. Months passed after that unexpected meeting at the hospital gate. Clara's mother and brothers stayed in a small apartment provided by the hospital foundation. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind them of grace, the kind of grace they never showed her. Clara visited them sometimes, bringing food, medicine, and clothes. She never mentioned the past again. At first, her mother could barely look her in the eyes. Guilt weighed her down like a stone. Sometimes, when Clara came to drop groceries, her mother would start crying all over again. "You should hate me," she would whisper. "You should have let me suffer." But Clara would only shake her head gently and say, "Hate doesn't heal, Mama. Love does." She meant every word. The years had softened her heart. Pain had taught her patience. Suffering had taught her strength. And forgiveness had set her free. Daniel and Felix found work at the hospital warehouse through David's help. They worked quietly, keeping to themselves, ashamed of what they had once done. Sometimes they avoided Clara's eyes, but she would always greet them kindly. "Good morning," she'd say with her calm smile, and somehow, those small words reminded them that mercy still existed. Meanwhile, life between Clara and David blossomed gently, like a slow sunrise after a long, dark night. He stood by her always, never rushing, never forcing. With him, she felt safe, not because of his wealth, but because of his calm soul. They shared meals, dreams, laughter, and faith. David introduced her to his parents, and from the first meeting, they loved her instantly. Mrs. Williams, his mother, took Clara's hands and said softly, "My son has told me everything. You are a rare kind of woman. You remind me that kindness never goes unnoticed." Clara smiled shyly. "Thank you, Ma. I only did what I could to survive." "No," Mrs. Williams replied, still holding her hands. "You did more than survive. You turned pain into strength. That is something not everyone can do." It was the first time in years that Clara felt like she truly belonged in a family again. A year later, David asked her to marry him. It happened quietly, not in a fancy restaurant or in front of a crowd, but right there in the hospital garden where their friendship began. The sun was setting and soft light filtered through the trees. David stood beside her, holding a small ring box. "Clara," he said gently, "I don't want to promise you a life without challenges, but I promise you this. Whatever comes, you will never face it alone again." Tears filled her eyes. She nodded slowly. "Yes, David. I've walked through loneliness before. I know what it means to stand alone. But with you, I found peace again." He smiled as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "Then let peace be our story." Their wedding came a few months later. It was small but beautiful, held in the hospital chapel. White flowers lined the aisle, and soft music filled the air. The staff, patients, and even Clara's family were there. Her mother sat quietly in the front row, wiping tears through the ceremony. Watching her daughter in a white gown, radiant and calm, she realized just how much God had lifted the same child she once rejected. When the pastor said, "You may now speak your vows," Clara took a deep breath. Her voice trembled, but every word carried truth. "I once thought my life was over," she said softly, looking at David. "But God set me light through you. You showed me that love doesn't erase pain, it heals through it. I promise to stand with you, not just in joy, but in truth and faith." David's eyes glistened. "And I promise to love you not because of what you've been through, but because of who you are, strong, humble, and kind." When they exchanged rings, the hall filled with applause. But it wasn't the loud clapping that touched Clara's heart. It was the sight of her mother, standing with trembling hands, tears of repentance streaming down her face. After the ceremony, her mother approached her slowly. My daughter, she whispered, voice shaking. You've become everything I prayed to be. Forgive me, and thank you for not turning your back on me when I turned mine on you. Clara hugged her tightly. It's over, Mama. Let's start again. The two women held each other for a long time. The past was heavy, but love was stronger. Years later, Clara stood again in the garden of her home. The same woman who once slept by the roadside, now a respected doctor and wife. The house was peaceful, surrounded by flowers. Children's laughter echoed from inside. She and David had been blessed with twins. Her mother often visited, playing with the children, her heart finally free from guilt. Daniel and Felix had become humble men who never stopped thanking her for giving them another chance. One afternoon, as the sun sank low and painted the sky orange, David walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. You're quiet again, he said softly. Clara smiled. I was just thinking about the past, about how everything changed. He kissed her forehead gently. It changed because you never stopped believing, even when no one believed in you. Clara looked toward the horizon. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of peace. She thought about that girl who once stood crying outside a blue gate, begging for love, begging to be seen. That girl was gone now, but her story had built this moment. With a small smile, Clara whispered, God truly writes better endings than we can imagine. David smiled. Yes, and yours is just beginning. They stood there quietly, watching the sunset fade into gold. Two souls who had found each other through pain, proof that no darkness can hide a light meant to shine. And for the first time in her life, Clara's heart was completely still. No more begging, no more crying, just peace. The peace that comes when you forgive, rise, and finally come home.